Hello, my name's Andrew, and today we're talking about the 10 best foods you can eat on a raw primal animal-based diet. Alright, so the number one best food that you can eat on a raw primal diet is raw liver. It's extremely nutritious, but the reason that it's so important for a carnivore diet is because it's high in copper and a little bit lower in zinc, which is kind of rare because most animal foods are very zinc heavy. And what happens with a lot of carnivores is that their zinc levels skyrocket and then their copper levels go way down. So you get this kind of like caveman science bro mentality where they're just all linear thinking. They don't have any creativity, they don't have any emotion, no sense of humor. Like all they're really good at is sitting at the rowing machine and going because when you think about it, copper is essential for wiring, and it does the same thing in the brain. It's responsible for making all of these connections that you just can't make if you're eating a zinc heavy diet. Also, like all my organs, I prefer to ferment the liver, so this one's been going for about 3 days now. In the beginning, it just has kind of like a mild smoky flavor, but then over time as it ferments, it starts to get kind of tangy and it adds a really nice flavor to your dishes. It's almost like putting lemon into a bowl. And if you don't know, when you make high meat, when you ferment meat, it essentially breaks it down, but unlike cooking, you're not denaturing it, you're not turning it into something else that your body doesn't recognize. You're just taking the original thing and you're just breaking it into smaller and smaller natural components. So it's like the best of both worlds in terms of being really easy to digest, but then not destroying any of the probiotics or enzymes. Number 2 best food to eat on a raw primal diet is skirt steak. And a lot of people, when they start out, they'll eat 80-20 beef from the grocery store. And if you don't have access to anything else, it's better than nothing. But I found it to be extremely bland tasting, and this is for a couple reasons. For one, with most ground meats, they're just going to put the cheapest cuts in there so they don't have as much nutrition. And then also mostly what's sold at stores is beef, and I tend to prefer bison. I think it's more flavorful, but once it gets to about a week or 2 weeks, the protein really starts to break down, and then it can have this amazing, rich, salty, strong flavor, and it's basically like rocket fuel for your brain. Again, even if you can find bison in stores, it's probably not going to be very high quality. It may not even be grass-fed, and pretty much all of the beef or bison that you can find in stores is going to be vaccinated or maybe given antibiotics and sometimes corn. So unfortunately, you're probably going to have to order it frozen from some place like North Star Bison. But a lot of these places will give you free shipping if you order over a certain amount, so that's something to plan for, and I usually just order in bulk, and it ends up saving me money. Number 3 best food to eat on a raw primal diet is heart, and Aajonus Vonderplanitz, who's the founder of the raw primal diet, described it as like muscle meat with benefits, which is pretty accurate because it's mostly protein, but it does have CoQ10, which is really essential for heart health, as well as a slightly better balance than steak and other muscle meats in terms of zinc to copper and magnesium. But like skirt, I've also found that it ends up tasting really amazing for making high meat. Number 4 best food to eat on a raw primal diet is bone marrow, and you can get this from someplace like North Star Bison in 1-inch segments where they take a large bone that you would have to cut up yourself, and then you can just buy the little parts like this, so you can just dig out the bone marrow. And I do it with a knife. You just scrape it out. It's pretty easy. It's soft. It's sort of like butter, and it's an excellent source of a lot of vitamins and minerals and some calcium and magnesium, all of which supports healthy joints and bones. Number 5 best food to eat on a raw primal diet is raw butter. This is raw cultivated butter, which is even better. And although most of the butter in grocery stores is pasteurized, except maybe in California where they do sell raw butter, you can usually get it from Amish farms if you have one near you, or there are a few that even do delivery across the United States. But anyways, the reason that butter is so awesome for a raw primal diet is that it coats your digestive tract, so it moves things along, and it's kind of like a substitute for fiber, because when you're on a vegan diet, eating a lot of fiber is what keeps things moving through. But I eat about 50 grams of raw cultivated butter per day, and yeah, I have no problems whatsoever with my digestive tract clearing out. Plus, it's also got some sodium naturally. I don't even buy the salted, this is just plain. And overall, raw butter is an amazing option for maintaining a smooth energy flow all day long. Number 6 best food to eat on a raw primal diet is raw brain. And this can be a little bit more expensive. Sometimes it can be harder to find, but Amish farms often will have it, and it's an excellent source of omega-3, so really good for brain health, plus energy like any other fat source, and it is literally melting in my fingers right now, so I'm just gonna eat it. Number 7 best food to eat on a raw primal diet is raw milk kefir. You can get this from Amish farms, and you can either get it pre-made, which is kind of nice because there can be a lot of meal prep with any diet. But if you want to save some money, you can buy kefir grains and raw milk, which is generally a little bit cheaper, and then you just ferment it for about 24 to 48 hours, and then you have your own homemade kefir. Other than being a great source of calcium, kefir is also excellent for probiotics, and after 24 hours, it's already pre-digested a lot of the lactose, which makes it even easier to digest and lowers the the potential for any allergic reactions, because most people don't realize this, but the pasteurized milk that's sold in stores essentially kills off all the enzymes and probiotics that would help you digest lactose, which is why more than 70% of people are either intolerant or full out allergic to pasteurized milk. And when you drink it, what happens is that your body struggles to break down the lactose, so it ends up generating a bunch of mucus and you feel clogged up, you get headaches and you get allergies, you start sneezing constantly. But again, especially if raw milk kefir, once you start drinking that instead of regular pasteurized milk, most people's allergies just completely disappear, which is what happened with me. And now years later, I'm still 100% allergy free, when for years I thought that I was allergic to pollen and pet fur and dust, and it just turned out that was complete nonsense. Number 8 best food to eat on a raw primal diet is coconut water, and preferably if you can get the whole young Thai coconuts, that's the best option because it's gonna be the freshest. It's gonna have the most enzymes and probiotics. And then you also get the coconut meat, which you can blend up into your own coconut yogurt, maybe mix a little bit of kefir in there to ferment it if you want to, or just some lemon to improve digestion. But yeah, coconut water is an excellent source of potassium, which is important for electrolytes, and it's difficult to get on an animal-based diet. But if you're worried about the higher amount of sugar in coconut water, you can actually ferment it for 24 hours with kefir grains, or even go longer with 48 hours, and at that point there's almost no sugar left. Unfortunately, although some grocery stores will stock young Thai coconuts seasonally, they can be a bit difficult to find, so you might have to settle for bottled coconut water like Harmless Harvest, which you can find in the refrigerator section. But you should never ever buy coconut water that's just sitting out on the shelf, not refrigerated, because it's essentially just dead sugar water. Number 9 best food to eat on a raw primal diet is avocados, because they're loaded with potassium and magnesium and copper, which again can be kind of difficult to get from animal-based foods. Although one really important thing with avocados is you want to make sure that they're 100% ripe, you know, that they have some softness to them, because if you're getting them when they're a little bit more green, they'll be a lot higher in anti-nutrients and especially oxalates, and also they just won't taste as good. You know, when they're fully ripe, they have a very buttery, delicious flavor, and when they're more green, there's kind of like this, I don't know, bitter yuck. Finally, number 10 best food to eat on a raw primal diet is egg yolks. Now, the reason you want to eat egg yolks and not egg whites if you're eating them raw is because egg whites contain a compound called avidin, and then also, although you can neutralize avidin by cooking the whites, I just wouldn't recommend eating whites in general, because if you think about it, like an egg has a shell, which is the outer protective layer, and then the whites are the inner protective layer. They really have no nutrition at all other than some protein, which if you're eating animal-based, you're already getting more than enough of anyways. And also the whites are kind of like the inner protective layer, so if there are any problems with bacterial imbalances, that's where it's going to be, not in the yolk. But yeah, egg yolks are also a powerhouse for B vitamins. They've got some iodine as well as fat, and choline is really important as well for improving digestion. Just a final note on sourcing for eggs though, you want to make sure that you're getting corn and soy free, as well as organic and pasture raised and free from antibiotics and vaccines like all animal foods. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, most grocery stores are not going to meet these standards. They're either fed corn or soy or maybe antibiotics and vaccines, so it's another one where you're probably going to have to order from Amish farms or pick it up locally. All right, so those are my top 10 raw primal foods, but just to give you guys a couple more bonus ones that I really like, this is raw honey, and I don't eat a lot of it. I usually have maybe a teaspoon per meal or sometimes none at all, but it can be a good source of emergency energy, especially like if your fermentation cycle breaks down and you're having to eat just completely de-thawed raw meat, which takes more work in your digestive system. You just need a little bit of extra pick-me-up. But a small amount of raw honey can also be excellent for your teeth. I've found that sometimes, like if I get little pieces of meat stuck between the gums, it can just start to build up a little bit of inflammation. But when I have a little bit of raw honey each day, it just seems to prevent any kind of infections from happening. Finally, another raw primal food I really like is Gerolsteiner mineral water. Nice thing about this is that it has 20% of your magnesium and your calcium RDA just in one of these bottles. Sometimes I'll even drink 2 per day. And if you're someone who can't tolerate even raw dairy or even raw milk kefir, this could be a good option because it would replace the calcium that you're getting from the raw milk. And it's naturally sparkling as well, so if you wanted to mix it in with a little bit of coconut water or some fruit juice in the summer just for a bit of a sparkling drink, that can taste really good. But I just find that I don't really like the carbonation. It just kind of makes me burp, even though it is natural, it's not artificially carbonated. So generally what I do with Gerolsteiner is that I just shake it up a bunch and then I open the cap carefully, let it out, and then I'll do that a few times when I first open a bottle. I may even just leave the cap open, kind of like this, loose, and that just lets the carbonation go out. And then I might also like swish it around my mouth the first, maybe a quarter of the bottle when it's really bubbly, and I don't want that. But overall, yeah, this is pretty much what I'm drinking for most of my hydration other than raw meat itself. Okay, I lied. I do have one last food for you, and that's wild raw blueberries. A lot of times, unfortunately, you have to get them frozen because you can't find them fresh in stores. But they're still healthier than the giant commercial ones they sell, even the organic ones from like Driscoll's, because they're essentially ultra cultivated to have mostly sugar and not much else. That said, in terms of serving size, I usually just have like a handful of wild blueberries after each meal. I find it just seems to be nice for vitamin C and adds a nice tangy kick to a higher fat meal. All right, so those are some of my favorite foods that I've discovered on the Raw Primal diet. But if you want to learn more, you can watch my Raw Primal day in a life video to see what I eat every day, or my high meat vlog to see what it's like eating fermented animal base for the first time. Finally, if you have a question about the best foods for Raw Primal or about natural health in general, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Peace.